as well, we are going to be able to see a Clefairy on his opponent's side of the field. And I'll let you talk about the other one.
So the other one, I'm so glad you handed it over. We've got the Porygon Z there. Such a powerful offensive Pokemon here. So this is Nils' team on the left-hand side, paired up with the Rillaboom, Dracovish, Talonflame, the Indeedee, and the Clefairy as well. So Clefairy on this team as well, really great for using Follow Me and applying a lot of other support with things like Helping Hand and Icy Wind to reduce the speed on the opposing side of the field, and it makes such a great partner for Porygon Z. It was a pairing I actually used in my Euro Cup match as well, so I do vote for it very heavily. But again, you have so many heavy hitters in there as well. You've got the iconic Fire Water Grass Core with the Rillaboom, the Dracovish, and the Talonflame as well. So you've got loads of different options there to combat different types of type advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Rillaboom has been one of the biggest revelations in Series 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
To go from definitely a fringe Pokemon that some people were looking at to being one of the most used. I think it is actually currently the most used Pokemon in the format. It's just been like it comes to so many teams. So interesting to see it kind of coming round. And, you know, we've seen Cinderace get a go. We've seen Rillaboom get a go. There's one missing. Do we think Inteleon ever gets a go?
Poor Inteleon has just been left behind by Primarina, that's come in saying, hey, I'm still relevant from the previous game. I'm going to be the water Pokemon that everyone wants to pick. But the Pokemon that everyone really wants to pick is Clefairy. We see two of them here on the field, supported on Mephisto's side with the Indeedee, and then we've got that Porygon Z on the opposing side there for Nils. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some pretty heavy max strikes coming out from this Porygon Z.
Yeah, I mean, Porygon Z is there to do damage, and it's in a really nice position to do that. There's nothing that can really stop it. Or right about now. So, you know, we do see some pretty good offensive options from Artem's side of the field. But, you know, Nils, I think, you know, obviously they're matching the Clefairy, but I think when it comes down to pure offense, I think Porygon Z brings an edge in the fact it's Porygon Z. And we all know, you know better than anyone really, that it is.
It's amazing.
Super damaging.
Exactly. It's such a strong Pokemon. Look at it here in its Dynamax as well. It's so excited to be here. It's excited to be relevant again. Just look at him. And the thing with Porygon Z as well is it's actually got quite a diverse move pool. Like, we're all expecting there to be something like a Hyper Beam on there, but depending on what the other moves are as well, things like Dark Pulse, Thunderbolt, Blizzard, there's so many different options that can go on here. But the Clefairies, being great supportive Pokemons, a Helping Hand, a piece here, as indeed he goes for the Expanding Force, one of these new moves as well, boosted up by the Life Orb, going to deal a huge amount of damage to that opposing Clefairy. Porygon Z able to hang on and goes for that Max Stripe in retaliation. Picks up the one-hit KO there against, obviously helped up by the Life Orb chip, and will lower the speed on the opposing Clefairy as well. I mean, this is just a great position here for Nils. The Life Orb as well, chipping away at that Porygon Z, but it was able to survive that Expanding Force, and now Clefairy being able to help Porygon Z on that next turn, go for some redirections. Porygon Z can just go for more damage once again.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a tale of two attackers there, right? You've got the Max Strike and the Porygon Z versus the Indeedee and the Expanding Force. Now, Expanding Force, don't get me wrong, a very, very good move. You know, it's one of those things that when you're in complete control of the terrain, you're off for a flyer, but it falls short and doesn't get the knockout. So Nils, you know, still has his Clefairy on the field, still has his Porygon Z on the field. Yeah, I mean, they could get knocked out really easily by something like this Slowbro. If this Slowbro gets Expanding Force off, we saw it in Team Preview, has a Quick Claw. If that activates, things can get real dicey real quick. If it doesn't, though, it still just has to withstand the pressure that this Porygon Z is putting down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the health on Nils' side of the field isn't the most optimal at the minute. Clefairy will go down to pretty much anything that flows its way. And Porygon Z, not known as one of the most bulky Pokemon, and having already taken such a heavy hit, will put itself into a vulnerable position. But Nils deciding to shake things up. They're going to get a little bit of terrain control here, bringing the Grassy Surge to the field. I'm going to have Fake Out going into the next turn. Maybe if Porygon Z is playing defensively on this turn, but no. Clefairy instead going to go for the Follow Me, just withdraw all the attacks coming into its direction, potentially sacrificing itself for the Slowbro here, as Max Strike comes out once again from the Porygon Z, does a huge amount of damage, picks up the clean KO again, because Porygon Z, you just can't stop him unless you're kind of a ghost type in this situation. You can just do so much with Porygon Z. Clefairy is down, Life Orb Recall goes into Porygon Z, but it does leave it vulnerable to the Expanding Force from the Slowbro, but Slowbro not able to pick up the KO here.
Yeah, I mean, the Slowbro is really fishing for the, being able to move first. That's what it needs to do. It needs to get in another attack before the Porygon Z attacks it. There's no redirection now. There's not much to help. Urshifu can obviously help out. It's got a number of priority options that can do with it, things like the Sucker Punch. But most importantly, Nils sees exactly how Artem's strategy works, right? It relies on Psychic Terrain being up, and you're just hitting Expanding Force turn on turn on turn. The issue here was, well, I have a terrain controller, right? I have Rillaboom.
Yes.
And Rillaboom just switches in. Turn number 2, yeah, you lose the Friend Guard. Yeah, that's annoying. But you just switch in, change the terrain up. Expanding Force now isn't a spread move, and it's doing less damage. Yeah, that's an issue. Interesting to know, Artem hasn't Dynamaxed anything yet. He is kind of, playing it a little bit slower. It looks like he's going to Dynamax that Urshifu, though, and just kind of pushing on with that as kind of the win condition. We are going to see which type of Urshifu it is as well, and that could be definitely interesting.
Yeah, just sort of locking in the moves as quickly as possible there towards the end. Was a little bit in panic in certain modes there, when you're trying to lock things in really, really quickly. And like you said, didn't have the Dynamax, and you don't want to waste it in a game at all. It's just such good pressure. To activate the hero up on the Urshifu. Slowbro, though, going for the Protect, doesn't want to take any damage. Rillaboom does go for the Glassy Glide. Does a huge... Oh my goodness, does so much damage, revealing the Focus Sash on the Urshifu as well, which it definitely needed in that situation. Grassy Glide doing so much damage. I know it's in terrain, but oh my goodness. Porygon Z, sadly, is going to be KO'd, but I think it did a fantastic job so far in the game. And ultimately, yes, Porygon Z's down, but that Rillaboom in the terrain still has access to Grassy Glide going forward. That is priority in that grassy terrain. It will easily be able to pick up the KO against that Urshifu, and due to sort of the health that it's got at the moment as well, there's not a lot that the Slowbro can do to apply pressure to the Rillaboom either.
Yeah, I mean, the Slowbro can try and attack it with its type attacks. I think that would certainly help it out. But I mean, the problem is the threat of Grassy Glide hasn't gone anywhere, right? Not everyone is bringing that Rapid Strike style Urshifu. I think I obviously don't have statistics on it. I'm not going to pretend I do. But I think a lot more people have been running Single Strike Urshifu than Rapid Strike. Yeah. And, the problem is with the Rapid Strike is it gets beaten pretty comfortably by Grassy Glide. With the Grassy Glide in here right now, there's both Slowbro and Urshifu are going to struggle to deal with that. And once you've lost the terrain, we lost in DD turn 1. It gets a little dicey. Yeah, it's really problematic there for Artem, and particularly with the Dracofish coming in, a Pokemon that's known for being fast, particularly if you throw a Cheeky Choice Scarf on it as well. It could easily pick up the KO against the Urshifu, leaving the Rillaboom free to go for some damage into the Slowbro potentially, or vice versa. Let's have a look. Fisher's Rank going into that Slowbro does so much damage, picks up a one-hit KO, so strong, and Glassy Glide, like we said, it's still not going anywhere. It's going to be able to do 21 HP damage on that next turn. Just phenomenal play there from Nils with his team. It had so much hyper-offensive pressure on. We've talked a lot about how these teams at the moment, particularly when you get into a new series, hyper-offensive tends to come to the forefront straight away, right? Because it's just pick up KOs, or let's put some redirection in there as well, a little bit of terrain control, a little bit of weather control, and eventually you start piecing together different things in the meta. But the one thing I love about Nils' team is you have that core with Fire, Water, Grass. You also have the Porygon Z that can start lowering speed, and you get speed control so effortlessly that way, but also while dealing huge amounts of damage. Normally when we see speed control, it might be something like Trick Room or Tailwind, and those are non-damaging moves. But Max Strike not only will very likely pick up a KO, but then it helps you in the next turn outspeed the Pokemon remaining on the field, so you can get another Max Strike off. Yeah, I mean, this really is the tale of two sweepers, right? You can't leave the Porygon Z unchecked, and I don't know, looking at the teams, if there's an answer for Artem that just says, okay, well, actually the Porygon Z can't start just dealing damage turn on turn on turn. So I'd be curious to see exactly if he can kind of find the answer there. That said, I mean, Nils had a kind of every piece of the puzzle. He saw that this team relied on the use of Expanding Force, which, not a bad move. I quite like Expanding Force, to be honest with you. But once it gets sussed out, it gets a little bit hard to kind of respond to.
I think as well, if you're Artem, that the biggest problem you have is you don't have anything that can really hard counter Porygon Z. We touched on previously, you know, Ghost type's obviously immune to those normal type moves, can throw kind of a spanner in the works there. I know Porygon Z often will carry Dark Pulse to counter for those, but if you have a really tricksy Pokemon, let's say a Ghost type Pokemon with Ally Switch as well, you can really mess around and waste those max turns of the Porygon Z. Alternatively, you can try and pick up a strong KO against it, and that's something the Urshifu can deal big damage against that Porygon Z for sure, but you need to make sure that you're not taking big damage in recoil and that you're not then, I want to say, not wasting your Dynamax just to get rid of one specific Pokemon, because that then applies a lot of pressure to your partner Pokemon to be able to deal with the rest of the team as well while you're concentrating on one Pokemon. But that's one of the things I love about Porygon Z. It forces all the attention on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Porygon Z is something that is going to be a threat for the foreseeable future, right? I just don't see a number of easy ways around it. Do I think it's going to be completely dominating? Probably not, if I'm honest with you, but I think it's still kind of one of those back of the mind threats. There are certainly some interesting options here. I just saw when we were looking at team preview the eject button, which could be rather annoying. So, you know, seeing that kind of coming to the front, certainly a little bit different, but you know, we'll see if that can actually come into play in this game, as Nils just looks so comfortable, and he's changed up his lead. This could cause some problems. I don't know if Artem is expecting exactly this.
Yeah, things changing up a little bit here. You've got the Indeedee and the Talonflame. Not often two Pokemon you see in combinations the Psychic Terrain stops the priority attacking moves like Priority Brave Bird or Dual Wing Beat from the Talonflame, but if it's going for something like a Tailwind, it's going to be unaffected, and that could be a very good choice as you're facing down against a Whimsicott. Whimsicott, again, Prankster Pokemon, uses a lot of those priority moves, of course, and interestingly enough, Whimsicott can go for its own Tailwind here, but it can always opt for something like a Taunt as well, and go across to that Talonflame above the terrain. But no, if you're Whimsicott, I think you're going to be wanting to go straight here for your Tailwind. Talonflame very likely going to match that, and then it's just going to be down to what Extrill and Indeedee are going to get up to.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious to see how much value this Talonflame brings. I have a thought that it might not be the most valuable, particularly with the Dynamax on it right in front of its face. But you know, sometimes you just need the Tailwind, right? That's all you need. It's just a little Tailwind, and that would be enough to kind of secure things for the rest of the game. So we'll see if he can weave that in. Talonflame getting that up though, very very.
Yeah, Talonflame getting the Tailwind up there as well, as is the Whimsicott. So speeds are going to be matched now on the field. It's going to have to come down to some other kind of speed mechanics if they want to change them up. Indeedee going for the Expanding Force though, does a good chunk of damage to that Whimsicott, but does activate that eject button, so it gives Artem the opportunity to switch in another Pokemon here. That will come in unscathed. You know, both of Nils' Pokemon have gone for their moves. So it's whether, looking at the team here, whether he wants to bring in the really supportive Pokemon here of Clefairy, use that redirection to keep Exeggutor as safe as possible, or maybe go for that Slowbro and start trying to pick up some damage.
Yeah, I don't know if the Whimsicott was trying to switch itself out, or I think when we kind of hover on the moveset, it had the old Switcheroo trick available to it with Switcheroo, and then you Switcheroo onto a Dynamax and get it out. But you know, that kind of gives him an opportunity, I guess, halfway through the turn to adjust a little bit, you know, and that's actually something you often want with the Tailwind setters, right? Like, it goes up, you want it to just leave the field after that point, right? You know, and this Talonflame getting knocked out is kind of doing exactly the same thing for Nils. That said, you know, the Slowbro is now in Psychic Terrain. We didn't see any Quick Claw or Draw activations last turn, and with that Poison typing that it's picked up, maybe not the ideal situation when you're staring down a bunch of Expanding Forces.
Yeah, exactly. The new typing is definitely an interesting one. It does give Slowbro lots of nice coverage, but also does leave it vulnerable to some of the attacks previously he didn't have to worry about as much. Porygon Z, though, is now here on the field, and Nils has quite wisely not used his Dynamax yet on the Indeedee or the Talonflame previously. I believe saving it very nicely for this Porygon Z that's sitting in a great position. But of course, Porygon Z, we have said previously, not the most bulky Pokemon. If Exeggutor as well wants to go for any sort of max Quakes. It's going to be able to boost up the special defense, and that will help out itself and its partner Pokemon against some of the damage that Porygon Z can deal out.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder where it's going to target those, though. I mean, being able to throw down max Quakes would probably be key here. Slowbro does get a quick draw off, but before that goes through, it is going to have to, you know, deal with the Dynamax form of Porygon. So we'll see, you know, how much damage it can do. It might be able to get a good knockout here on Indeedee. Be curious to see if that can work, but quick draw will be causing some problems.
Yeah, this time Slowbro is operating in its optimal terrain, so we will deal more damage to that Porygon Z than we saw in Game 1. Does just over a third, and Excadrill does indeed go for that max Quake. Going to go straight into that Porygon Z. Obviously, Excadrill's such a hard hitter, but Porygon Z, being awesome, is able to just manage to hang on. Of course, will be taking some damage due to Life Orb and due to Sand, so it may not be hanging around for very long, but it does still enable it to get this first max strike off. Going straight into that Slowbro, actually removing it from the field. Doesn't want to have to deal with any of those kind of factors with the quick draw and the quick claw. That's quite hard to say together in succession, but just wants to kind of alleviate those situations from occurring as Expanding Force goes into that Excadrill. Really doesn't do too much damage, and Porygon Z, for all of its efforts, will be KO'd to the Sandstorm.
Yeah, I mean, Porygon Z got a knockout and left. You usually want it to get more knockouts than that. But, hey, it tried its best, right? That said, looking at Artem's side of the field, you know, he's got Clefairy, he's got Whimsicott. This is something I see it as a bit of a problem. I remember back, and I'm sorry, I'm sure he's probably listening. I don't want to bring it up again. But you know, thinking back to Costa's game yesterday, when you're stuck with two very much defensive Pokemon or supportive Pokemon in the back, things can get a little dicey for you. That said, you know, things are about to change up very, very quickly with this Rillaboom's Grassy Surge changing things around there. You know, we do know about the Grassy Glide, which Excadrill can take, you know, especially, you know, with some of the kind of boosts and stuff. But overall, you know, it should be all right. I think Nils is still in a solid position. He just needs to kind of weather the last turn of this Excadrill's, you know, Dynamax.
Yeah, I think as well, though, having the Clefairy here for Artem does put him in a good position where he's able to redirect away any of the attacks from Nils here. And his Excadrill stunned its Dynamax stage. You know, that's something Nils doesn't have access to anymore. Porygon Z has been and gone for this game too. If he maybe wants to go for some more max strikes, or maybe max steel spikes, not max strikes, max quakes, and then max steel spikes, maybe boost up the defense, it just gives Excadrill that longevity going into the next couple of turns. Clefairy, though, here, gonna go for the redirection here. Rillaboom using that Grassy Glide with the Helping Hand boost in the terrain does a huge amount of damage to that Clefairy, but it is able to survive, so it will be able to redirect another day. As the Max Steel Spike does indeed come out from that Excadrill, does good damage to the opposing Rillaboom, putting it in a more precarious position going forward, but more crucially, giving the Excadrill the defense boost as well to take those Grassy Glides even better going forward.
Yep, that defense boost is really, really important, and the Clefairy getting to do exactly what it needed to do in last turn. I do think that this Excadrill has got so many good boosts out of the setup and everything it's bought. The 3 different kind of additives on top of it, really, really smart throughout the turns of Dynamax. Nils does need to bring, in my opinion, a better answer to it in if we go to game number 3. That's damage output is now lowered a little bit, but Rillaboom's taken a whole lot of damage and needs to be a little bit scared of that. The Indeedee being back in, certainly a strange one. You know, Indeedee's just kind of been sitting, and it just doesn't seem to be that overwhelming right now.
Yeah, it hasn't really been dealing kind of any heavy offensive pressure here. Going for the Expanding Forces is great and everything, but it's not going to be able to pick up good damage, particularly as the Psychic terrain has gone away. Clefairy going to go for that redirection again, just protects Excadrill one more time from a Grassy Glide, oh my god, it's so hard to say. As Excadrill follows up with the Iron Head, it's going to target down into that Rillaboom, does manage to pick up the KO, so keeping itself safe from those moves going forward. It's not really going to worry about any Expanding Forces. You saw how well it took it in the Psychic terrain, and now in the Grassy terrain, it really doesn't do a lot, whereas Excadrill can pretty much regain that from the Grassy terrain as well, helping it out, and it can deal some good offensive pressure into Indeedee going forward. Yeah,
I mean, there's not been a good enough answer to the Excadrill in this game, and it looks like we're heading to game number 3 with Indeedee not really in peak position to be able to kind of fight back. against this combination. So that, I mean, the game plan was all around Excadrill, right? It was all around keeping Excadrill safe, and it did a really, really good job. So we'll see what adaptations we get in game number 3, but I don't think we're going to see anything too crazy to wrap up the end of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the Pokemon that Artem chose to bring to this particular game too. Like you said, it was all about Excadrill, but he managed to protect them really well, leading out with the Whimsicott so that you were guaranteed to either get the speed advantage or at least match it and stop it going against you at that particular stage. And then having that support as well with the Clefairy just did help Excadrill stay on the field, be able to take attacks really well and start boosting up as well. So once it was out of the Dynamax, it had some kind of defensive advantage against the Pokemon on Nils' side of the field. If I was Nils, however, I can see what he was trying to do with his lead, also going for that Tailwind, but you were then, with the Psychic Terrain in effect, were kind of stopping, if it is sort of Gale Wing's ability, Talonflame, were stopping it from being able to use those moves and maybe sort of being a bit detrimental to the strategy there. I think as well because it allowed Excadrill to start going straight into its Dynamax, starting to get those boosts straight away. It meant that by the time Porygon Z came in as well, the advantage was and the momentum was kind of rolling a little bit more on Artem's side. So if I was Nils, I might want to bring that Porygon Z first and foremost again.
Yeah, I think you've got to. I think matching the Tailwind was fine on paper, but it just felt a little bit underwhelming, right? And Whimsicott was probably a little more useful than Talonflame in the long run, particularly a Psychic Terrain is going to be the thing that we're dealing with in this format. So I think there's got to be adaptations made. I think both players are very capable of making them. I kind of liked Urshifu not being bought in that game. You know, we saw that Urshifu was underwhelming. I think that was a nice change. You know, bringing the Whimsicott instead. Much better than the Urshifu. A lot more value out of Slowbro with the, of course, change up there. And it getting the quick durability activated really, really helped make sure that it could do as much as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the key things that Artem was able to identify as well is he needed to get rid of that Porygon Z before it was able to start going through with those max strikes. And I think the way he targeted it upon Porygon Z's turn into Dynamax was really, really well played. He managed to get rid of that threat straight away. Even though it didn't pick up the KO, the combination with Life Orb and Sand just went against the Porygon Z, but it enabled the momentum to not go against him in that particular situation. And that's what he's going to need to do again in Game 3 if he comes up against the Porygon Z.
Yeah, we'll see. I think the leads are super important in this game. These teams are so offensive. I really do think the leads kind of decide who gets that early advantage. And once you get that early advantage, I think the onus is on them to try and kind of keep it up. Prefer this. I think not giving away that Psychic Terrain is really, really nice. So I do think I much prefer this to what we saw last game. That said, I mean, Artem's got a much more kind of supportive role in Clefairy, that Friend Guard, that Follow Me, that redirection. So annoying. So yeah, no, I think it's a smart play. You know, I think he's going to be kind of forced into dealing with the Porygon nice and early. We'll see exactly where he can go with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Nils at this stage, you know that the Porygon Z is able to survive a Max Quake from that Excadrill, right? Because Clefairy's not going to be able to double up with any kind of threatening offensive pressure here. So you'd be free as Porygon Z to maybe go for some big damage, Max Strike into that Clefairy and just remove it from the field. You remove the redirection, you remove the Friend Guard, I think most critically, leaving the partner Pokemon at sort of a more neutral exposed level to take the damage. Whereas Talonflame can put yourself in a good position to go for either some follow-up damage just to try and make sure that you're getting some KOs here, or also to go for that Tailwind, just make sure the speed is consistently out on the field. But my favourite thing to see in any game of VGC, Porygon Z going into Dynamax, just look how happy he is, Adam.
Yeah, no, I mean, Porygon Z loves Dynamaxing, there's no doubt about it. I'm not even going to try and deny it with you there. You know, and getting those boosts, I mean, that's one thing, right? If you could go back in time and say, hey, what would make Porygon Z better? And somebody was like, well, I could offer you double your health pool.
Yeah.
And also more damage on your attacks. You'd be like, yes, please. And then even if they like whispered at the end, you only get it for 3 turns, you'd be like, yep, that's fine.
I'll take it.
That's absolutely fine. Like, I want the game over in 3 turns.
I mean, Porygon Z does too as well, but Clefairy's going to try and stall it out a little bit here, going for the Follow Me, going to protect out the Excadrill. Talonflame going for the Tailwind though, boosting up the speed, and speed again. Porygon Z looking mean and angry, going to go into that Clefairy, lower the speed on Artem's side even further. So even if Whimsicott's in the back, comes in and goes for a Tailwind, that Excadrill will still be at the -1 speed. Interestingly enough though, Excadrill here going for the max rockfall, so bringing the sand back into effect as well. That's going to be doing some good chip damage throughout the game while it's in effect. And Talonflame, we know it's a Pokemon with its typing that doesn't like taking rocks, doesn't like taking it from a max move, and particularly from a critical hit. So Talonflame, yes, it's got the Tailwind up, that's going to be critical going forward, but it's not going to be doing anything else in this set.
Yeah, but the Tailwind is just kind of matched immediately by the Sand Rush, right? You know, we see the Sand Rush coming into play. We know that that's going to kind of cause problems. But then it's matched by the Tailwind over on Nils' side of the field. We do get to kind of get that insight that there's no Tailwind to match again from Artem. He did it with Whimsicott in this game. So, like, the Tailwind and the Sand Rush match up really nicely there. But then you've got to factor in the Max Strike that we just saw. Mm-hmm. And the Max Strike's lowered it again. So I think now the Excadrill is actually definitely behind the pace. Even with Sand Rush, it's going to struggle to keep up. And this is something we didn't see in game number 2 from Nils. The Dracovish is on the field. Dracovish is definitely a pun for Excadrill. Mm-hmm. Even in its Dynamax form, we know just how much damage Dracovish can really do.
Yeah, Dracovish is a very heavy hitter. And depending on the item that Nils has got, I don't believe so far on the set we've had it confirmed. But normally it is carrying something that's going to be boosting one of its stats. So it will be like a Choice Scarf or Choice Band, or sometimes the Mystic Water as well, to allow you a higher Fissure's Rend damage, but still you can switch your moves around. But if it is something like the Choice Scarf, that's even more speed advantage going Nils' way. And I think Excadrill, realizing the precarious position that it's in, goes for the Protector or the Max Guard, as Fissure's Rend goes into the Urshifu here. Not very effective, but Porygon Z able to follow up with a Max Strike here, and the double up into the Urshifu is going to be able to get the KO. And although Excadrill hasn't taken any damage this turn, its speed will be lowered, and I can see why, if you asked him, you went for the max guard there, because there's a lot of pressure coming at your way from that Dracovish. But in a way, it was a complete turn of the Dynamax wasted. This could have been a good opportunity to maybe get some big damage off against one of these opposing Pokemon.
Yeah, and it's really a turn where Nils reads that turn absolutely perfectly. He goes, okay, I've got Dracovish on the field. You're going to look at Dracovish and protect in front of it. So I'm just going to deal with your Urshifu, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Nils has that experience to know when protects are coming in and coming through. And he really, pushes the needle completely in his favor there. If there was any doubt, it's really forcing it. And landing another Max Strike as well means that even with the Sand Rush, this Excadrill is going to be sat there with a lowered speed. So even if it gets to a point where, like, Sand Rush is still active but Tailwind isn't, it's just gonna be like too slow to deal with some of these threats. This Excadrill is on its third turn of Dynamax. It's max guarding again. This time it's valuable. Yeah. The previous turn wasn't. But realistically, Porygon's still gonna have to just max strike stuff to knock it out.
I mean, look at that. Slowbro leaves the field as quickly as it joins. And, getting the double max guard there, you can see, as you explained, why Excadrill's gone for it. But Porygon Z was able to predict and work around it. There wasn't too much need to double in that situation. You want to get rid of that Slowbro, remove some of the pressure that it can apply. And knowing how slow this Excadrill is, as long as your Pokemon are able to survive going into this next turn, Excadrill is just going to be a kind of sitting duck in this situation where Nils is going to be able to pick up some clean KOs against it, particularly with that Excadrill.
Yeah, I mean, Dynamax is over, so things are going to be a little bit different. But now with, the speed drops and all of that, 3v1, it doesn't matter. Excadrill's just going to give it up. And Artem is going to fall 2-1 to Nils Dunlop. Obviously, Nils is a fantastic player. Mm-hmm. Nils is a player that we've known for a very long time to be one of those top players in whatever division he's playing. And he's showing that in the Europe, he still puts on a show with a team that are a little bit different and a little bit more aggressive than some.
Exactly, and I think he had the matchup advantage there as well. Picking Porygon Z, it's been a Pokemon that we've talked a lot about, me in particular. I'm sorry, I can't help it, but we actually see it on hyper-offensive teams, but with different sort of levels of composition in there. And sometimes it's really effective, but at other times, if your opponent has a solid counter to the Porygon Z, if your other Pokemon on your team can't do their own kind of strategy, if you maybe bench Porygon Z, is your team still viable? Is it still strong? That's where you're going to run into some problems. And I feel like on Nils' team, it was actually really well balanced. There was a lot of good diversity there with supporting Pokemon, hyper-offensive Pokemon, and it just in the matchup, Artem didn't really have too many key Pokemon that can switch into a Porygon Z, and it just gave him a lot of trouble. He had to always focus down against it, and on those turns where he wasn't able to pick up KOs against Porygon Z was able to sweep through the team. That's exactly what we saw happen.
Yeah, game 3 I think is the perfect execution of the Porygon team. He got Tailwind up uncontested,
Hmm.
which is a big deal. Not having Tailwind matched just let the Porygon Z cause so many problems. And I think that was something that was really interesting in game 2, was watching that speed tier and kind of matching that up a little bit better. But in the end, Nils finds that opening. Some of the adaptations in game 3 from Artem just weren't quite on the mark.
Hmm.
And losing Clefairy that quickly, losing Pokemon just like as quickly as they came in, as you called it, just never something you want to see. And so when you can't withstand the Porygon, yeah, there's going to be problems.
Yeah, and I think Nils was able to play around those defensive plays at the end of game 3 really well. I mean, one of the ways to get around Porygon Z is if you can find a way to protect yourself and stall out those Dynamax turns, then potentially when Porygon's back deep down to its normal size, it's a little bit more manageable to deal with. And, getting the double max guard there was actually really clutch if that had been the target, because you would have saved yourself from 2 max moves. Porygon Z would have wasted 2 of them. And then once the Dynamax is over, you can put yourself into quite a good position again. But Porygon Z, or Nils, I should say, was actually able to target correctly using his Porygon Z and kind of work around the defensive plays that Artem was going for.
Yeah, I mean, that I think it's the second turn of Excadrill's Dynamax where he doesn't fish us round and he doubles up, which does get the knockout on Urshifu. That's just really good play, and that's just a kind of next level understanding that we talk of reading your opponent and being able to say, like, I know exactly what you're going to do, and I'm not going to let you get any benefit from it. And that just really speaks to Nils' as quality as a player.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're halfway through the competition for today. We've had 2 of our 4 matches, and there's still going to be plenty of epic Pokemon play to go. You've got to remember as well, we're in week 2 of the pool stages. So depending on how our nations do going through this stage, they're going to be playing their final matches of the pool rounds next week, and then we'll be advancing through. The top 2 teams out of each pool of 4 will be advancing. So there's a lot to play for. These games are very, very intense. There's a lot at stake for all of these players.
Yeah, I mean, the tournament's definitely heating up now. We've got some teams who know that they're going to be kind of pushing on through, some teams that don't. So yeah, I think more games to watch today, and of course next weekend as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to throw it to a short break. So we'll be able to bring you the second half of today's Pokemon action very, very shortly. So don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss some of these super hype games that are up and coming. So be with you in a moment.